Episode of the Everblack podcast is brought to you by Deathwish, Hotrods and Kustoms. Check out their Instagram for all their new t-shirts, caps, beanies, cups, and the all-new Atomic Death lineup.
To start it, by full disclosure, I've been a massive fan for many, many years. Pretty sure I've still got broken ribs after seeing you guys at the Palace nightclub in 2001 with the Rollins band. And
that was a good show.
That was a fantastic fucking show. You know what? I'm a massive Rollins fan, but you guys absolutely destroyed them that night. There is no holding a candle to how, dude, you were so tight. And I mean, you are pretty much every show that I've ever seen you. So, but no, that was a fantastic fucking gig. It was the first time I actually got to see you as a 21-year-old go, yay! So pretty sure my ribs are still half broken from that night.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, firstly, congratulations on making it into the South Australian Hall of Fame, Musicians Hall of Fame. So there we go. Yeah. And look, it's close to 40 years now that you guys have been a band. So how did it come about after all that time?
Yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of it. It's interesting. We were, I heard about it, I think it was earlier this year, Tim Pittman, who looks after us, he just said, hey, do you guys know that, Sammy have approached and asking you to, be inducted? And I mean, I was surprised actually a little bit, but because it's not like people can just sing the songs that we put out there. When you think about bands like the Angels, Cold Chisel, I don't know. But again, I thought that's a really nice thing that they've asked us. I would not say in an interview some of my thoughts in the previous about things with the way music has been judged and presented in Australia and South Australia, in the last 30, 40 years. But I think Samia, I see Samia now as a lot more legitimate than they used to be. And I think they, look, it's great that they've offered it to us. It's a little bit odd. And I think, I obviously think there's bands that probably are more deserved of it sometimes. I think people who really put SA on the map in the 80s, like Exploding White Mice and guys like that, were really important about letting people know that Adelaide had music here. That whole catalogue of bands from the late 80s.
Yeah, I mean, you really represented from the 90s though, when you really started to have that impact across the nation. And you are right. It's not the Angels style of music, but you guys have a lot of respect, I think, which is where some of the majority of Australian pop bands never really had that in the same way, an international respect. And you're also, there's really, apart from Helmet, there's no one who sounds like you guys, and you guys came up at the same time together. So it's one of those things. You guys are far away from the norm, really.
Yeah,
so,
we don't. It's always been weird. Yeah, we've never really sat in a particular category apart from that really riffy, heavy thing. But yeah, it's always. I mean, I think that made it difficult when we first started. People didn't quite get where we're coming from. But and of course you're right. The 90s was the key time. I think we got our shit together through that late 80s period, and I still think it was almost beneficial that Kim and I both, it was virtually 2 years where we weren't playing because he was overseas and I was. And that was that whole 90, 91, 92 when, that whole Nirvana grunge thing took hold. So when we came back and started playing, even though for us it wasn't new, we were new to everybody else.
Well, that's it. And is one, and like you said, I mean, you guys were always a different kind of band to whatever else was going on at the time. Probably the heaviest non-metal band if not in Australia or the world.
Thank you.
I can remember reading a review of This Is This. It must have been in like one of those FHM or something like that magazines that said you start with a thump, you end with a thump, and thump all the way through. I've always loved that as a perfect representation of what I thought the Mark of Cain were all about. But you know, you've picked up this honour from the South Australian Hall of Fame, yet you know Arias doesn't seem to have really paid any attention, or on a national level. You know, it's more of a local thing rather than a national thing. Does that ever? It sounds like it does get up your nose a little bit from what you were sort of alluding to earlier.
Yeah, look, I don't think it matters. And again, I've always said we've never been a band that chases that sort of thing. And look, it's obviously when people get it, it's obviously a huge importance. But I never really work out what are they really recognising bands for any at the ARIA level. It's usually how much wealth they can generate for other people. Yeah, exactly. It's wealth generation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not necessarily for the band either.
No.
So yeah. And what does that mean in the scheme of things? Who gives a fuck, right?
Not much. You know, I had this exact same conversation with Ray Arn from the Hotrods the other day, and he was saying much
Ray
the same.
He would, again, he'd always say, like, you know, the Hotrods are 100 miles away from, or kilometres, whatever, 1,000 kilometres away from what all that is about. I like to think we're similar like that.
Well, yeah, and again, it comes down to respect. You know, you guys are respected. You're not necessarily selling 1,000,001 albums, but people hear your name and you respect it. And there's a lot of other Aussie bands who are in that category that you can't get arrested here in Australia. I'm sure you could if you tried. But as a band, you know, you're not given the respect by the general Australian public that you do in other parts of the world who actually respect decent music. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
So you guys have explored every kind of tension, really. So the new tour you're calling a different kind of tension. What tension are you referring to?
I think I was really that was I really heavily went back to a Buzzcocks phase, actually.
Yeah.
And at first I was going to say I wanted to make it a bit of a different music in a different kitchen type, you know, a different music in a different city. And then Kim said, "Oh no, that's just the same fucking music in the same city." So we threw that one out. And I always look like sort of like the artwork of Malcolm Garrett and that. And you know, I guess I just threw it out there that I wanted us to do something because for whatever reason, I'm just thinking just so much in this Buzzcocks headspace because I was reading all these books and some interesting lost tapes where a journalist interviewed Pete Shelley previously just before he died. Mm-hmm. But the idea at first was, I think Kim had wanted to call it the Long Black Tour for whatever reason, because I think he loves coffee, but he also saw us we're coming out of the darkness of fucking 2 years of nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's why a different kind of tension, I think, was part of it, was this whole last 2 years has been a different kind of tension for everybody.
Just shit.
It has been shit. It's like, for me, I feel like 2 years got wiped off the calendar. 2 years off my life and just gone. We're in 2020 now. We're in 2022. What the fuck happened? Yeah. And not necessarily. There's all some of the, I think, poor decisions in between, government policies and whatnot. And I mean, I'm fully for vaccine and stuff like that, but I think that to some extent there's just been some nanny state sort of stuff in there as well that have it's really been interesting. Quite a division more than any time in that 2 years of, you know, and friends who've gone down the rabbit hole.
That's what happens when you have too much time on your hands.
Absolutely, it is. So anyway, so that's really the tension we're talking about.
That's good. Well, given that, you know, we had 2 years of lockdown, so when can we expect a new Mark of Cain album after 10 years? You know, where us fans are really champing at the bit here.
question keeps coming. That's now it's the third time.
I know. I'm sure it is.
Yeah, and look, I do. I say I'm always noodling and messing around with stuff. I've got stuff taped and backed up. I'm going to say I have my drum kit here because I still piss around on drums. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway, at this point I've got stuff that I want the guys to work on, but right now it's like rehearsals for these shows, and yeah, we have talked about it, and whether or not I think we want to approach anything that we would release as not an album per se. I'd rather do some stuff if it's a 4-track vinyl EP, or even a shared EP, something with someone else. I've got some ideas there. Yeah, I think that's what we're looking at, not necessarily a big landing and a whole lot of new stuff. And plus, I'd never want to be the band, the band that do their final album or that album that becomes, oh yeah, geez, they just lost it. And that's where I'm really careful. Everything has to have that same amount of whatever, immediacy, urgency, makes sense. It's lyrics that make sense. It's the music that makes sense. You don't want to be treading the same. Well, I mean, we do tread the same boards. I'm often seeing similarities through the music. I think when we did Battle Sick Tour, and I went back and we were looking at songs, I was like, oh fuck, I've used that before. Oh, I've used that before. I've seen that progression before. I'm seeing things that I utilize throughout my music writing. I want to make sure that we do something that's interesting if we release it. But yeah, so to your point, I would like to do something. I would like to get in the studio later this year, at least run some stuff by the guys and then work out what we want to do. So never say never.
And is that sort of your process then for songwriting? Are you the evil man who writes those terrifying drum rhythms and stuff like that? Or do you just come to the band with bare bones of songs and the rest of the guys add their pieces?
Most times I know what the drums need to do. I might not be executing it exactly how it should be. I drummed for 5 or 6 years when Tim Up was still going for another band called Fear and Loathing. And my skills aren't anywhere near like Eli's or anything like that, but I'll definitely know when I've got a riff running instinctively what that beat should be organically. The nuances that drummers put in for fills and that's really up to them. But yeah, I'll go. I like to go with pretty well everything solid, or at least in sections. Or we're not really a jamming band. It's more, here's a riff, get Kim to play over and over, drums, idea, and then work it, and then try put it together. We haven't done that so much organically lately. When we did the last album, it was with John Sania. That was more almost writing in the studio, and it's not as organic. I mean, we did do a lot of pre-work to that album. Songs that took ages to come to fruition because we had done work. We did pre-work, just he and I working, jamming, taping ideas and turning it into something. But yeah, it's nice to do it organically in the band practice room, and then you come up with a fully laden song. Yeah. So yeah, but yes, I usually am the one that brings it to the guys. And
fantastic. Have you ever tried to jog to something like Tell Me? I tried once. I ran into a post.
That would be impossible.
That's why I say it's just evil. I suppose that's probably why you went through so many drummers in the early days.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, we
burnt the poor buggers out. You had to put them down.
We were reminiscing on the drummers, but yeah, no, it's good. And Eli is so solid and just fits in great. It's really good. I mean, when I think back, he joined us as a young guy. He's starting to get middle-aged now, I think.
Oh dear, aren't we all? So you guys are in a pretty good position as far as the band is concerned. I mean, you booked a couple of shows in Adelaide and all of a sudden they sold out pretty damn quickly, and then the rest of the national tour is selling very quickly. But yes, you've also got your lives as well. You don't have to do this. This isn't something like someone who's got their entire career invested in just playing music. You've got your own careers outside of this. So does that give you a lot more leeway to be able to really enjoy being a musician and enjoy being in a band that can do that. Put their, not to say you do, but put your guitars on ice, push your brother into a cryogenic chamber for a couple of years and then pull him out again and get started.
Look, and I think, it's good. I mean, look, in the early days, I think I would have liked to have thought that we could parlay into something more full-time. And, we always could have, but I guess, engineering always called to me, and I do less engineering. I do more like on the management side or whatever. But I'm still I love what I do outside of this. And musically, it is good because I think that if it depends. I think it's a two-edged sword. If that's your whole way of generating income, I think it makes it difficult. You see a lot of bands just really struggle to do that, and it just never seems to work. As soon as that's your way of supporting yourself, I think people make decisions that they might not necessarily make. They don't make good decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying for everyone, but I think that it does afford the idea that you can come to it and just play it, and you can be quite brutal in your quality assessment, of what makes a good song and what you're willing to accept to put out there. So, I mean, that's how I see it. I think that makes it, better than bands just like putting shit out for the sake of putting shit out.
Just because you have to have another record and, one or two hits and the rest is all just pus. Yeah.
I mean, it's fantastic if you're feeling really creative. I think my creativity it's in little spurts now. It's not like it was when I was younger.
Yeah. And I suppose that leads me to the next question that I had, which is around the power that you guys put into your music. I mean, it's always been, as I said, it starts with a thump, ends with a thump, and thumps all the way through. And it's got that, I mean, it's that angst that men of my age and older and younger all sort of feel. Do you see any time that might actually sort of drop off for you? I mean, you seem like a pretty happy kind of a guy. Do you see a point where it might be a bit hard to sort of,
look, when we had we started the practice side of it. We started, a few weeks ago. We hadn't been together for 2 years. It was literally 2 years since we did our last show, and actually we're together in the room rehearsing. And I was just amazed at how well it all came together, how brutal it sounded. It sounded really fucking good, and I was just like, wow, we're at the level. I mean, we wouldn't have played a gig like how that was, but it was pretty tight.
Yeah.
It needs to be, a bit. And I was just amazed at how after 2 years, how together it was. And I loved it. I just went through it and I was just like, fuck, this is so good. And it was just so brutal. And it's, remember, that's just three guys. No one else is hearing this. Yeah. It's just us guys just going through it and going, fuck, that sounds good. And which sounds really up yourself, I suppose. But, you just know it's just got this solidity and it just sounds brutal. And, we're always a bit concerned about some of the other people who are practicing at the place we do. We think we're always closing the doors and saying, we don't want to annoy everyone else, because when we start playing, it fucking wipes out everybody else in the place. We always feel terrible. I think one of the bands left some donuts outside our door after practice on Sunday and said, it sounded really good. Something like that. It was quite funny.
Oh, fantastic. So big, you play at full volume then, I take it?
Oh, we don't, but we're still, it's Kim. He's the loud one. I noted that my guitar's just a little bit lower this time. I don't know. I just think the combined three becomes, one, and it gets much bigger. I have stuff that I write that's for me that is much more melodic and probably might interest people. I'm just never ever put anything out. Perhaps one day I will. But I do have stuff that is just stuff that doesn't work in the Mark of Cain. But still you can tell it's me, but it's a bit different. So sometimes I think, I should just grab Eli and Kim and lay down a whole lot of stuff that is not released under the Mark of Cain, although it would be us playing it, but it would be a particularly different feel. It might be of interest.
That would be cool. I'd be keen to hear it. I'm sure there'd be plenty more that'd be keen to hear it. I mean, you got a lot of powerful friends about the place who'd be quite happy to, I'm sure. And on more of a sort of music gear geek, what are you guys using to come up with that sound? I mean, obviously the Rickenbackers have got their very distinct sound, particularly Kim's bass, which is just this rumbling monster. But as far as amplifiers and everything are concerned, a lot of people are moving towards, the digital amp modeling and stuff. Are you guys still 100% into your tube amp and massive cabs and all the rest? Or
I've considered the digital amp modeling, and I remember Eli's other band that he's in, which is a heavy band as well, Life Pilot. Their guitarists use those digital simulation type amp type stuff, and I almost went to go that way because I was having so much trouble with my amp at one stage, which is a Adelaide based one called MHB. It's after the Manfred H. Bayer, who's a German guy who designed it's like 150 watts, and it served me well for 30 odd years, but it was having a lot of breakages. And knock on wood, it's fixed at the moment. But I was having a lot of difficulties matching that with on the road. If that conked out, it was always a Marshall, and the Marshalls are too dirty for what I do, which might sound weird, but it just doesn't work. I can get by with them, but I found H&H. Right. Yeah, H&H, like heads are very, very clean, and so that's what I've got as a backup when we're touring. Because what I do is everything has to be clean through the amp, which is what this MHB was about. This guy was very much, he wasn't a big rock and roll guy. He designed things to be very pure. So, and even then I don't use the high sensitivity channel, I use the low. So even then it's not overly distorted. When I go through high, my amp is 150 watts, whatever, pure RMS. The thing is that the sound I have really has to be whatever pedals I've got running, which is the metalizer, which is the one I always use. Metalizer and equalizer, really simple, maybe a bit of reverb these days, and I've got a little chorus occasionally use. That's very, very simple setup. Kim uses, again, where we practice at Custom Music, Frank Woogie, he does his Woogie amplifier, and that's what Kim uses as a bass amp. And the Woogie, I guess it's very similar to a Boogie, the Boogie. And then Kim has just some basic pedals he puts it through. He does have a particular pedal. Oh, now I can't remember what the brand name is, but I remember it's basically a preamp, and it sets the bass sound up that virtually almost whatever rig you use, it'll sound pretty good like what he's got. So, and he's also, I always have to point out, his Rickenbackers. So I use Rickenbackers. His Ibanez. Oh, Rickenbackers.
Right.
So years ago, we went through. We looked at Rickenbackers bass, and we tried them out, and they were nowhere near. There's like a mid bass or mid type thing that the Ibanez seemed to hit, and we just could not get it with the Rickies. So there you go.
The sound is, I mean, like I said earlier, it sounds like no one else on earth. And it's just got so much punch, and that's all the bass and the drums. I mean, that's the tightest rhythm section in Australia.
Yep. There's the engine room. Yep.
And question then, does Kim actually ever smile? And if he does, how many people die when he does?
Only if you ever see him smile on stage, it's because he's farted.
I remember that, and I'll run even further because, my God, that man terrifies me. It just as a presence on stage. He doesn't have to do anything, and he's got probably more stage presence than most people.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not going to pick a fight with you.
I do. I can remember seeing a guy pick a fight one time, and I just thought, oh, I really feel sorry for that guy.
He's going to get hurt very badly. Look, is there any chance that you guys are going to head overseas again to try doing a few tours overseas or anything like that?
I'd love it. It always seems that when we do the maths on it, it always comes out at a negative. I think it really depends on who you can link up to. I don't know. There was some talk. Like, it was interesting when we'd been toured last time with aesthetics, seeing if there was some sort of approach there we could do. Yeah, I don't know. There's a question we always have to put back and see what we can come up with. There are people who you can virtually, you can do it. I think the thing that I understood is that a lot of bands who tour, particularly if you go to Europe and that, it's almost like a one-off. They don't come back for another 2 years. Not that would have mattered for us. Yeah, it would be really, really nice to do that, almost as a, whatever. But not I'm saying we'd do that in Australia, but just to get that under our belts, it would be good just to show people what we can do. Who knows? Maybe one day.
It depends on whether you want to live in a van smelling each other's socks, I suppose.
It's okay. You can do it for a short amount of time, but you don't want to do it for an extended amount of time.
Just as well you're related to the bass player, I suppose.
Yeah.
Look, mate, thank you so much. I know the time's almost up here, and you've probably got a whole bunch more interviews to get through before the end of.
Pretty easy today.
Fantastic.
Pretty easy.
I can't wait to see you guys in September. So you're playing Miami MARKETTA, I think, and then up here again at the Zoo, which now has air conditioning. So
I heard that because people were saying it was just like ridiculous otherwise. Yeah.
It's gross. I think the last time it wasn't the last time I saw you. I've seen you since then, but I saw you at the Zoo, and just down the road, Shellac were playing that same night.
Yep.
So
that's a pity. I reckon I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah.
Because you said that. I don't know why you guys are here. Steve Albini's playing down the road. Well, because you're here? No, I said I've seen you guys quite a number of times now. I spent 2001 living in Melbourne around the time that you were doing a lot of shows around the This Is This album. So I do remember catching you at the corner with Dern Rutledge and I can't remember who else it was. There was another Adelaide band that was constantly giving you guys shit. I can't remember who they were, a punk band. And that Rollins show. So, and, plenty of time since then. So I'm looking forward to the shows again. Can't wait. I'm sure there'll be a hell of a lot more people there with me.
Come up, say hello. We'll catch up, have a drink.
Absolutely, I'll buy one. Catch you later, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.